The year I was the poorest, I kidnapped a princess from the elite circle. Give me 1,000 yuan or I'll sleep with you. Hearing this, the princess, who was shivering a moment ago, instantly went blank. You kidnapped me just for 1,000 yuan? Are you looking down on me? But after searching her entire body, I only found 50 yuan. Later, she kidnapped me back. Holding a small leather whip, she asked me, "Didn't we agree that if I didn't give you the money, you'd sleep with me? Why did you run away? You're not just looking down on me, you're insulting me." I was so broke that I was practically smoking. My rent was half a month overdue, and only the seasoning packets were left in my instant noodles. Sitting at the doorway of my rented room, looking at the rent due notice stuffed through the door slit by the landlord, I was seriously pondering a question. Can a person survive for 3 days on just hot water and dignity? Before I could figure out the answer, a message popped up in the part-time job group chat. Immersive escape room extra, 1,000 yuan per hour. Requirement, male, 20 plus years old, brave, articulate, and able to play a villain. Seeing the words 1,000, my eyes almost turned green with greed. Bravery aside, I could definitely play a villain. After all, I didn't look like someone whose life was going smoothly right now anyway. The address was an old studio in the suburbs. The person posting the job said, "The young lady's friends are throwing a birthday prank. Just scare her according to the script. Absolutely do not touch her. The cringier the lines, the better the effect." I rode a shared bike all the way there with my last 2 yuan stuffed in my pants pocket. There was only one thought in my head. After finishing this gig, I'll first eat a bowl of beef noodles, with eggs, 2 of them. But right after I entered the studio, a girl rushed out of the darkness and crashed right into my arms. She was wearing a light-colored dress, her hair was a bit messy, and her face was as pale as if it had just been scooped out of the moonlight, yet her eyes were incredibly bright. Footsteps approached from behind. She grabbed my sleeve and lowered her voice, saying, "Don't make a sound." I froze for 2 seconds. Great, the plot has started. This immersive experience is quite realistic. Following that crude script from the group chat, I casually grabbed a piece of rope from a nearby box and loosely wrapped it around her wrist. It was called a tie, but she could actually break free with just a twist of her wrist. I even deliberately stood half a step away, afraid of ruining her dress. That dress looked expensive, so expensive that I felt my sweaty hands weren't even worthy of touching it. I cleared my throat and tried my best to use the fiercest tone of my life. "Give me 1,000 yuan, or I'll sleep with you." The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted it. What kind of trash line is this? It sounds like a third-rate mini-drama cannon fodder who wouldn't survive 3 minutes. The girl, who was shivering just now, suddenly became confused upon hearing this. She looked up at me, her expression shifting from fear to bewilderment, and from bewilderment to feeling insulted. "You kidnapped me. Just for 1,000 yuan?" I bit the bullet and nodded. "Yes." She went silent for 2 seconds, her voice changing. "Are you looking down on me?" My fierce momentum instantly crumbled because of her question. "It's not that I look down on you, it's just that my asking price is relatively modest." She stared at me with a fiercely adorable expression. I softly added, "If you think it's too little, you can take the initiative to offer more." She laughed out of anger. "You're even bargaining!" The footsteps outside were getting closer, accompanied by cursing. I started to feel that something was wrong. Is this prank a bit too real? The fear on her face didn't look acted. I kept my voice down and asked, "Do you have any cash on you?" She frowned. Who carries cash nowadays? I was even more panicked than her. Don't you rich people prepare prop money when you play pranks? It took me a long time to get here, and my shared bike even went out of bounds. While calling me a psycho, she opened her small chain bag and dumped everything out herself. Lipstick, a mirror, tissues, hairpins. She searched the bag carefully again. "How can I only have 50 yuan on me?" Holding the bill, I thought seriously and said, "Why don't you look again?" She looked up and glared at me. "You actually dare to ask for more?" I felt wrong, too. "The script didn't say you'd be this broke." She immediately gnashed her teeth and glared at me. "You're calling me broke?" I nodded. "Judging by our current cash flow, there isn't much difference between us. I still have 2 yuan. She stared at me for 2 seconds, then suddenly smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, but the kind of smile where she was so angry she wanted to call the cops, yet felt it would be a waste of time. Just then, someone shouted at the studio entrance, "They're inside!" Her face changed instantly, and her whole body began to tremble. My heart sank as well. This wasn't a prank. I might have actually been used as a tool by someone. I immediately untied the ribbon on her wrist and pulled her toward the back door. She couldn't run fast in high heels. I turned back and said, "Take off your shoes." She glared at me. "You want me to go barefoot? Then you stay behind and talk politely with them." She hesitated for a second, bent down, took off her shoes, and ran with them in her hand. At that moment, I gained a whole new understanding of this girl. We slipped out the back door and climbed over a broken fence. She asked in a lowered voice, "Who on earth are you?" I was panting like an oxygen-deprived dog. An extra. What extra? The 1,000 yuan an hour kind. She looked at me. She suddenly smiled again. I thought she might have been scared out of her mind, so I couldn't help but remind her, "Maybe you should stop smiling for now. In case they catch up, we can cry together." She stared at me for a while. The night wind blew her hair into a mess, but her eyes were incredibly bright. She said, "Fine, I'll remember you." My heart skipped a beat. This tone didn't sound like she wanted to repay a favor, but more like she was holding a grudge. I escorted her to a well-lit street intersection near a local police station. I didn't dare walk any further. Standing under the streetlight, holding her shoes, she asked me, "What you said earlier about what you'd do to me if I didn't give you the money, were you serious?" My foot slipped, and I almost fell to my knees right on the curb. A script. That was just a script. I am absolutely a law-abiding good citizen. She gave a slow, "Oh. Running so fast, do you have a guilty conscience?" I didn't look back. I was afraid I wouldn't even get to keep that 50 yuan. No matter what, I couldn't return empty-handed after making this trip. The next morning, I used that 50 yuan to buy 2 steamer baskets of buns and a cup of soy milk. By the time I reached the last bite, my conscience kicked in. That's just how people are. When you're starving, your stomach takes priority, and your conscience has to take a number just to wait in line. Once the hot buns hit my stomach, my conscience immediately rushed out and slammed the table. "Yuan Ya, was what you did last night a decent human thing to do?" Crouching at the entrance of my residential compound. Staring at the remaining change in my hand, the more I thought about it, the more uneasy I felt. That girl wasn't acting, and the group chasing her didn't look like they were acting either. I said such a cruel line last night, and even took 50 yuan from her. This money felt like a hot potato. I initially wanted to put the money in an envelope and deliver it to the police station. I was halfway through writing a note. "Last night was a misunderstanding. Please don't call the police." After finishing it, I stared for 3 seconds, and a chill went down my spine. No matter how you look at it, this seems like a criminal mentally preparing himself before turning himself in. I quickly tore up the note and wrote another one. "Returning your money. I'm not a bad guy." Reading it over, I looked even more like a bad guy. In the end, I gave up on writing an essay. I put the 50 yuan together with the hairpin she dropped in the basket of my shared bike last night into the envelope and dropped it off at the 24-hour convenience store at the street corner. That store wasn't far from the police station, and it was also close to the intersection where we parted last night. I told the clerk, "A girl might have lost something last night. If anyone comes looking for it, give it to her." The clerk glanced at me. "Why don't you give it to her yourself?" I answered honestly, "I'm afraid she'll beat me up." The clerk fell silent for a moment and accepted it. I breathed a sigh of relief, feeling like I had repaid at least half of my moral debt. As for the other half, I'd wait until I had money to slowly repent. When He Chang heard about this, he laughed on the phone as if he were running out of air. "Yuan Ya, you are truly capable. When others get broke, they go haul bricks. When you get broke, you go kidnap young ladies." I said testily, "That was a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding to the point of saying you'd sleep with her if she didn't pay. It was all the script." "So did she pay up?" "She gave 50. He Chang fell silent for 2 seconds. "And you actually took it?" I ran my hand through my hair in frustration. "I returned it, all right?" That afternoon, I was delivering a milk tea order to an art gallery downtown. The customer's note said, "Delivered to the 3rd floor lounge. Knock 3 times. And say the secret code." The code was 1,000 yuan. When I saw the note, my hand shook, almost spilling the milk tea all over myself. I wanted to cancel the order, but the platform indicated a penalty fee. Taking a deep breath, I told myself it might not be her. The world is so big, it couldn't possibly be such a coincidence. The door opened. The girl from yesterday was sitting on the sofa, holding the envelope where I put her hairpin and the 50 yuan. On the table next to her lay a file, and the very first line on the cover was my name, Yuan Ya. She looked up at me. "Yuan Ya, right?" I turned around to leave, but the 2 bodyguards at the door extended their arms to block me. I turned back and flashed a poor but polite small smile. "We live in a rule of law society." She nodded. "That's why I didn't call the police." I breathed a sigh of relief. Then she added, "I just looked you up." That breath got stuck right in my throat. She waved the file. "The delivery platform's real name authentication, the convenience store's surveillance from last night, and your shared bike that got charged an out-of-bounds fee. You're quite easy to find." I fell silent for a moment. "Do you rich people always look people up this fast?" She said, "Not really. It's mainly because your poverty left a very clear trail." Those words hurt. I set the milk tea down and stood 3 meters away from her. A safe distance. Safe for her and safe for me. She glanced at my feet. "Why are you standing so far away?" I said. "To maintain my innocence." She smiled. "You talked so fiercely last night, but today you're talking about innocence?" I cleared my throat. "Last night was my professional state. Weren't you an extra?" "Being an extra is a profession, too." She was amused and angered by my words, tossing the file onto the table. "My name is Yaan Shu." My mind went blank for a second. I had heard this name before. Not the kind of hearing it that would happen in the daily life of someone like me, but the kind that appears on short video financial accounts, gossip channels, and rumors of wealthy family alliances. The little princess of the Ye family, the most untouchable person in the elite circle. I looked down at my delivery app, then looked back at her, finally understanding where that line from last night, "Are you looking down on me?" came from. My demanding only 1,000 yuan was indeed a bit of an insult to her net worth. Ye Qianshui pushed the milk tea toward me. "Drink it. I don't like things too sweet." I didn't dare move. She raised an eyebrow and asked me, "Are you short on money?" I said, "Miss Ye, your question is far too polite. If I weren't short on money, I wouldn't have gone to play a villain last night just for that 1,000 yuan. She opened her phone and showed me a screenshot. It was my delivery history. "You work so hard, so why did you still return the 50 yuan? I said, "The delivery money is what I earned. That 50 yuan was taken while you were terrified. The nature of it is different." She went quiet for a moment. "Yuan Ya, you're a pretty strange guy." I smiled. "Thanks." Poor people usually have a few quirks of their own. Resting her chin on her hand, she looked at me. "Do me a favor." I immediately took half a step back. "No way. 1,000 a day. I'm not that kind of person. 2,000. Don't use money to insult me. 3,000, meals included." I took a deep breath. "Exactly how many days of insults are we talking about?" Ye Qiangshu smiled like she had just lured someone into a pit and was worried it wasn't deep enough. "Pretend to be my boyfriend and help me ruin an arranged marriage alliance." I thought seriously for 3 seconds. "Can the meals include chicken drumsticks?" She nodded. "They can." I fell silent. It's not that a person has no principles, it's just that in the face of chicken drumsticks, those principles will sit down and negotiate a little. I thought pretending to be her boyfriend would at most mean accompanying her to a meal and helping her say a few unseemly words in front of some marriage prospect. I didn't expect Ye Qianshui to do things in a way that was much more wild than I imagined. The next evening, just as I finished delivering my last order, I was very politely invited into a car. Truly, very politely. The bodyguard even handed me a bottle of water and said Miss Ye had been waiting for me for a long time. I asked, "Can I choose not to go?" The bodyguard said, Miss Ye said, "If you don't go, she will personally go down to your rented apartment and shout, 'Yuan Ye, you said you'd sleep with me that day, why won't you take responsibility?'" I fell silent. A person can die from being poor, but they cannot die from social death. The car drove to a private clubhouse and I was brought into a lounge. Once the door closed, the lights dimmed. Ye Qiangshui was sitting on a single sofa, holding a small leather whip in her hand. Later, I confirmed that the thing was just a prop left over from her best friend playing cosplay. It didn't hurt to get hit by it, but it was very effective at scaring people, especially me. She looked up at me, giving it a slow wave. "Yuan Ye." I stood pressed against the door. "Miss Ye, let's talk things through nicely." She smiled. "Weren't you pretty fierce last night?" "That was my work state." I wanted to back up, but the door was behind me. She stopped right in front of me, looking up at me. Her tone was incredibly serious. "Didn't we agree that if I didn't give you the money, you'd sleep with me? Why did you run away?" My throat tightened. "I told you, that was just a script." "So, do you think I'm not good-looking enough?" "No." "Think I have no money?" "Definitely not." "Then you think I'm only worth 50 yuan?" I closed my eyes. "Ye Qianshui, don't talk like that. I'm scared." She burst out laughing. "You weren't scared when you kidnapped me." I corrected her. "That was a part-time job scene involving fraudulent intimidation. You weren't scared when you made me search your bag yourself. I stood 3 meters away, not even daring to touch you once. You weren't scared when you said you'd sleep with me." My defenses finally crumbled. I regretted that sentence the moment I finished saying it. Really, if I had known back then that you were the little princess of the Ye family, let alone sleeping with you, I would have wanted to ask if I needed to pay compensation just to look at you. Ye Qianshui froze for a second, then doubled over with laughter. I stood right there, feeling like her laughter was echoing through my whole life. When she had laughed her fill, she lightly tapped my shoulder with the whip. "Yuan Ya, you're quite interesting." I said, Usually people who evaluate me like that don't end up giving me a 5-star rating. She handed me a document. Fake boyfriend agreement. I took it, and the first thing I saw was the compensation. 3,000 per day, meal allowances calculated separately, transportation reimbursed based on actual expenses. My fingers trembled. Are you looking for a boyfriend or hiring a bodyguard? She said, you don't need to protect me. You just need to trigger the target's jealousy. I read further down. Rule 1. Must not take the opportunity to engage in any behavior that crosses the line. Rule 2. Must not use the opportunity to demand additional money or property. Rule 3. Must not run away after the fake act becomes real. I pointed at Rule 3. What does this mean? She folded her arms. Literal meaning. I said, something like the fake act becoming real isn't something I can do all on my own, right? She blinked. So you want to do it? I was so choked up by her single remark that I almost swallowed my own tongue. I want to live. She smiled. I took a pen and added a clause. Party A must not use small leather whips, public execution, or threats of social death to force Party B to operate. After reading it, Yaan Shu also took the pen and added a clause. Party B must not run off at every turn, especially must not play dead after Party A takes the initiative to flirt. Looking at that line of words, I raised my head and asked, Miss Ye, are you usually this direct? She said, depends on the person. Then what kind of person do I belong to? She leaned in a bit closer, lowering her voice. The kind who talks tough, but wants to sink through the floor the moment someone actually flirts back. I gave a forced laugh. You've misunderstood. I'm just showing respect for women. She nodded. Very good. Keep respecting me, until I'm satisfied. I lowered my head to sign. Once finished, she extended her hand toward me. I froze. What? Pleasure doing business with you. I shook it. Her hand was very soft and her palm was warm. It wasn't as cold as it was in the overgrown wasteland last night. Just as I was about to let go, she suddenly and gently hooked her fingers around mine. Yuan Ya. What is it? From now on, you're not allowed to say I'm only worth 1,000. I looked at her. There was a smile in her eyes, but she wasn't completely joking. I don't know what got into me, but I replied, then don't always throw money at me either. I'm afraid I won't be able to resist actually selling myself. Yaan Shu raised an eyebrow. Is it a bad deal to sell yourself to me? I rolled my eyes. It's not a bad deal. Then what is it? I pulled my hand back, my voice getting a bit quieter. It's just that I'm afraid you'll return the goods. The room fell silent for a few seconds. Yaan Shu didn't laugh at me. She just looked at me and said softly, Yuan Ya, I'm very picky when I buy things. I thought she was going to say something touching, but her next sentence was, especially picky about people. You'd better show some promise, don't make me leave a bad review. All right, this little princess really knows how to lock someone down. Yaan Shu prepared a suit of clothes for me. Standing in front of the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Yaan Shu sat nearby, watching and critiquing. Not bad, I asked. In what way is it not bad? She thought about it and said, you don't look like a kidnapper anymore. Gee, thanks. You sure have a strange way of complimenting people. She stood up and rolled up my cuffs a bit for me. Her movements were very natural, so natural that I froze for several seconds. She looked up. Nervous? I talked tough. What a joke. What kind of big scene haven't I seen? She said, the Ye family dinner. Xiao Ran and my parents will all be there, along with a dozen or so relatives who are experts at cursing people with their eyes. I immediately changed my tune. I truly haven't seen this kind of scene before. She smiled. You're scared, aren't you? Not necessarily scared. I looked down at her. It's just, in case I say the wrong thing, will you deduct my pay? Depends on the situation. What kind of situation? If you're not annoying enough, then you can rest easy. There won't be any deductions. I might not be good at other things, but annoying people is a natural talent of mine. The dinner was at the old Ye family estate. The moment I walked in, I felt as if I had accidentally wandered into an upscale residential area that doesn't let delivery drivers go upstairs. Long tables, fresh flowers, silverware. Everyone had that kind of smile on their face that said, I am very well bred, so I insult people without using curse words. Yaan Shu took my arm. The moment her fingers rested on it, my entire body tensed up. She turned her head and asked in a low voice, why is your arm so stiff? I also replied in a low voice, it's my first time acting as a wealthy family's +1. I'm unfamiliar with the business. She almost burst out laughing. Xiao Ran was sitting on the other side of the long table. He indeed looked respectable, and his smile was very steady, looking like someone who had never even zipped his school uniform crookedly growing up. He saw me, his gaze sweeping over indifferently. Qian Shui, aren't you going to introduce him? Ye Qian Shui said, my boyfriend, Yuan Ya. The dining table fell quiet for an instant. Xiaoran's smile grew even more gentle. Where does Mr. Yuan currently work? I spoke the plain truth. It's not fixed. One of the Ye family relatives frowned. What do you mean by not fixed? It means delivering milk tea today, moving exhibition boards tomorrow, and maybe walking dogs for people the day after. Ye Shui pinched me under the table. I lowered my head and said softly, Didn't you want me to annoy them? Suppressing a laugh, she said, At least pretend a little. I said, I am pretending. I didn't mention that I also took a gig as a kidnapper extra. She pinched me again. Watching our little interactions, Xiaoran's face finally lost some of its composure. He raised his wine glass. Mr. Yuan is quite humorous. I said, Thank you. Poor people don't have many talents, so we can only rely on humor to make life seem less miserable. Someone let out a snort of laughter and immediately held it in. Xiaoran asked, Then how did Mr. Yuan and Yaan Shu meet? This question was very dangerous. Just as I was about to follow the agreement and say it was at the art gallery, Yaan Shu suddenly beat me to it. He saved me. I froze. Her hand was still holding my arm, but her tone was very calm. You didn't show up later. Xiaoran's expression remained unchanged. Something came up at the last minute. I couldn't help but chime in. That was quite a last-minute thing. People chased her all the way to the studio. And you still hadn't finished handling it? The table grew even quieter. Yaan Shu lowered her head to drink water, her shoulders trembling slightly. She was barely holding back her laughter. The way Xiaoran looked at me grew a few degrees colder. Mr. Yuan seems to know quite a lot. I said, Not that much. Mainly, I just run fast. His father finally spoke, his voice not heavy but carrying a sense of pressure. Yaan Shui, do you know what you are doing? Yaan Shu set down her glass. I know. The matter between you and Xiaoran is not a child throwing a tantrum. Dad, I'm 22. I'm not a child. His father looked toward me. Mr. Yuan, do you think you are worthy of Yaan Shu? If this question were given to a TV drama male lead, he would probably have started delivering a 3-minute speech about his ultimate comeback. But I am not. I am just someone who was still calculating how to split one instant noodle seasoning packet into 2 meals last night. Mr. Ye, your question is far too grand. Right now, I am indeed not worthy of her family's status. When I just came in, I almost tripped over the carpet. Someone couldn't help but laugh out loud. I continued, but if you are asking me whether I would treat her as a business transaction, a contract, or a tool to trade for resources, I won't. Yaan Shu's fingers tightened slightly. I looked at Xiaoran. I might be poor, but I still know how to settle accounts. 1,000 yuan is 1,000 yuan, and a meal is a meal. But the way you look at her doesn't look like you're looking at a person. It looks like you're looking at a contract that's about to be signed. The smile completely faded from Xiaoran's face. The dinner party broke up on a sour note. When walking out the door, Yaan Shui pulled me along, walking very fast. Once we reached the courtyard, turned around to look at me. What's wrong? Were you speaking up for me just now? I did it so my pay wouldn't get deducted. She took a step closer. Then your sweaty palms. Were they also to avoid a pay deduction? I didn't know when, but she had taken hold of my hand. It was indeed sweating. I wanted to pull it back. She stood very close, her voice so soft it felt like she was deliberately scratching at my heart. Or are you afraid of liking me? My mind went blank. Before I could think of how to talk tough, my phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number. A photo. It was the scene of me tying the rope on Yaan Shui in the studio that night. Beneath it was a sentence. Stay away from her, otherwise tomorrow everyone will know. That Yaan Shu found a kidnapper to be her boyfriend. Yaan Shu saw it too. The smile on her face slowly faded. I turned off my phone screen. My first reaction was actually not fear, but feeling that I really shouldn't get too close to her. I wanted to leave that very night. Yaan Shu stood by the car, her face very cold. I said, It could also be someone around him. There is a difference, I said carefully. I'm just collateral. It saves more trouble. Yaan Shu looked up at me. Right. I tried to make it sound as casual as possible. It was fake to begin with. Let's end the agreement here. I don't want the money anymore. You want to run away again? That word, again, made me feel guilty. I smiled slightly. It's cutting losses in time. Look, someone like me is worth at most 1,000 yuan to you. Any more than that wouldn't be appropriate. Yaan Shui stared at me, her gaze sinking bit by bit. Are you looking down on yourself? Or are you looking down on my taste in the people I like? The wind blew across the courtyard, making the hem of her dress sway gently. Her voice wasn't loud, but her words hit me with a bit of pain. I asked you to come because you are interesting, and because even though you were scared to death, you still turned back to pull me along. My throat felt blocked up. After a long pause, I only squeezed out one sentence. I'll take it seriously. Yaan Shu took a step forward. Then take it seriously. Just then, a sudden commotion broke out inside the old estate's banquet hall. Someone shouted. We turned back at the same time. The large screen in the banquet hall had lit up. I was standing in the old studio, saying that fatal line to Yaan Shu. The editing was malicious. It only kept the parts where I tied the rope, spoke those outrageous words, and forced her to hand over the money. It didn't show me standing half a step away. It didn't show me untying the rope. It didn't show me running away with her, and it certainly didn't show me escorting her to a safe street corner. Xiaoran stood in the middle of the crowd, a look of perfectly timed distress on his face. Yaan Shu, I know you want to resist the arranged marriage, but you didn't need to make a joke out of your own safety. This person's motive for approaching her was not pure from the very beginning. People began whispering in low voices. This is too ridiculous. How could Yaan Shu be with this kind of person? The blood all over my body turned cold for a second. Not because I was afraid of them scolding me, but because in that edited video, I indeed looked like a very terrible person. Seeing us walk in, Xiaoran said slowly, Do you have any explanation? The eyes of everyone in the Ye family fell upon me. I opened my mouth but couldn't get a single word out. I had never stood under such bright lights in my life, nor had I ever been judged by so many people with their eyes. Yaan Shu suddenly gripped my hand very tightly, her voice not loud. Come here, she frowned. Boyfriend, come here. This call of boyfriend slammed the gaze of the entire room back onto me once again. She didn't let go of my hand, nor did she hide. Instead, she dragged me one step closer to her side. Xiaoran's voice grew a few degrees colder. Even now, you are still protecting him? Yaan Shu looked up at him. Should I protect you instead? She didn't rush to explain. Yaan Shu turned around to face everyone. This video is real, Xiaoran frowned. Yaan Shu raised her hand and pressed her phone to cast the screen. Another piece of surveillance footage appeared on the screen. The scene showed the back door outside the studio. 2 men were waiting there in advance, and a black car was parked by the roadside, its license plate perfectly clear. Next, it was Xiaoran's assistant stepping down from the car, handing a cigarette to one of the men. The banquet hall went completely silent. Yaan Shu said, That day, I was originally going to meet a friend, but was lured to the studio halfway through. Yuan Ya's appearance was indeed absurd, and his mouth was indeed so asking for trouble that he deserved a beating. She turned her head to glance at me. I rubbed my nose. Better not argue at a time like this. But even though he had the chance to hurt me, he had the chance to use me to get money, and he had the chance to hand me over to those men. She spoke word by word. He only took 50 yuan from me, and he returned it the next day, along with a hairpin I had dropped. Someone couldn't help but let out a laugh. A crack opened up in the bizarre atmosphere. Yaan Shu looked toward Xiaoran. So you claim his motives aren't pure. Then what about you? You arranged for people to chase me. Was it to protect me, or was it to make me so scared that I would submissively accept you? Xiaoran finally lost his composure. Yaan Shu, you would rather believe a lowlife fraud than believe me, but Yaan Shu was even faster than me. She took a step forward, her voice turning cold. Xiaoran? You can call him a smart mouth, and you can call him unsophisticated, but you have no right to call him dirty. He is much cleaner than all of you who trade me for profit. My chest felt like it had been seared by her words. Ya's father looked displeased. We will discuss this matter later. Yaan Shu turned around to face him. Dad, do you know the consequences? I know. Taking hold of my hand once more. Under everyone's watchful eyes, she said, and I also know exactly who I'm choosing. She held my hand tightly. I looked down at her. She didn't look at me, but simply kept her back straight, looking like someone who had stood alone for a very long time and finally didn't want to force herself to act obediently anymore. At that moment, I suddenly felt that being a fake boyfriend for 3,000 yuan a day was a real bad deal, because it seemed like I wanted to start working overtime for free. By the time I pulled Yaan Shu out of the old estate, the scene behind us was still a total mess. To say that you saved me, and to say that Xiaoran is the truly dirty one. I thought about it and said, I was afraid of stealing your lines. Yaan Shu stared at me. I couldn't smile anymore. And I was also afraid the more I explained, the worse it would look. In a setting like your family's, a true word from someone like me isn't nearly as effective as a single word from you. She asked. The question was so sudden I almost didn't know how to answer. Growing up, plenty of people had asked if I was tired. Even more had asked if I was short on money. But as for asking if I felt wronged, there seemed to be barely anyone. I lowered my head and kicked a small stone by the roadside. It's fine. Yaan Shu suddenly reached out and pinched my chin, forcing me to look up. Her grip wasn't heavy, but the movement was very aggressive. Stop using being thick-skinned as an all-purpose shield. Yaan Shu's eyes were slightly red, not from crying, but from anger. You clearly care a lot. But the words came to my lips, and I swallowed them back down. The night was very deep, and the streetlights stretched her shadow very long. I suddenly realized that Yaan Shu wasn't as invincible as I thought. She had just been taught from a young age to be too good at holding things together. I said softly, "The way you protected me just now." I was really happy, I continued. So happy that I'm a bit afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that I'll take it seriously. Afraid that when you calm down in a couple of days, you'll think that I'm actually just an ordinary guy. Yaan Shu let go of my chin. She suddenly pulled that agreement out of her bag. Right in front of my face, she tore it directly in half. The sound of the paper ripping wasn't loud, but it completely tore away any trace of an escape route left in my heart. What are you doing? To save you from always using what's real and what's fake as an excuse. Then what about my salary? That won't do. I finally found a bit of my natural instinct to talk back. Feelings are feelings and labor is labor. How could I have the nerve to take money without doing any work? Yaan Shu was amused and exasperated by me. Are you short on money? My brain short-circuited for a second. Is this also part of the salary? She raised an eyebrow. Wishful thinking. I let out a sigh of relief, yet felt an indescribable sense of disappointment. She saw right through me. She gave a particularly mischievous smile. Did you actually want to? I quickly turned my head away. Yuan Ya. Look at me. She stood on her tiptoes to lean closer, her voice drifting over along with the wind. Do you want to kiss me? My fingers curled up. She was starting up again. I said, we just got out of a crisis scene. It's not suitable to develop this kind of plot right now. Then when is it suitable? At least after we finish eating. Is there anything else in your head besides food? I looked at her. And you. Both of us went quiet. I suspected my brain had been broken tonight from tripping over that estate's carpet. Yaan Shu looked at me for 2 seconds, then suddenly burst out laughing. Yuan Ya! I turned around and walked away. She chased after me, grabbing my arm. Weren't you quite good at talking just now? Good words aren't spoken a second time. If you didn't hear it, then too bad. She laughed even harder. In the end, she didn't force me to say it again. Only, right before getting into the car, she suddenly yanked my cuff and gave my cheek an extremely gentle kiss. I froze entirely on the spot. Yaan Shu sat inside the car, rolled down the window and said, an advance on a little bit of energy. Touching my face. What kind of energy? She smiled very sweetly. Lone shark style. After the car drove away, I stood right there in the night wind for 5 minutes. Hiqiang called me to ask about the situation. I said, bro, I might be finished. He got nervous. Did someone find trouble with you? No. Then what's wrong? I looked at the headlights in the distance. I think I've been marked by a Beijing high society princess. The next day, the secretly filmed video made it to the trending searches. The headlines were each more ridiculous than the last. Beijing socialite princess suspected of falling for kidnapper after abduction. Ye family heiress publicly turns hostile for working-class boyfriend. A real-life version of Beauty and the Beast. I stared at the third headline for a long time. Could they please not use a photo of my hair being blown into a mess while delivering food? Hiqiang sat beside me, scrolling through his phone and laughing. Yuan Ya, you're famous. With a deadpan expression, I said, gee, thanks a lot. Someone in the comments said you look okay. Just that you look poor. They have an accurate eye, and others are calling you a gold digger. I sighed. That's not accurate. I haven't even had a bite yet. Joke as we might, real trouble indeed arrived. My delivery account got hit with complaints. I was kicked out of the part-time job groups, and my landlord called to make subtle insinuations, saying the neighborhood didn't want any public news figures around. My phone vibrated. Yaan Shu sent a message. Don't look at the trending searches. I replied, too late. Already saw them. Besides, even if I hadn't seen them, sending a text like this means I definitely would have gone to look. Yaan Shu first replied with a string of ellipses and then asked me, is it ugly? I said, it's fine. It's just that they made me look short. She sent a voice message. I tapped to play it. There was a smile in her voice. Yuan Ya. Is that really your main focus right now? I replied, for someone like me who barely survives on looks and hard work. It is a very big focus. She sent another line. Come find me. I originally wanted to say I wouldn't go, my finger hovering over the screen for a long time. In the end, I only texted back a single word. Okay. When I arrived at Yaan Shu's place, she was sitting in the living room with Guan Siwen. Guan Siwen was her best friend. She looked gentle and sweet, but her words weren't gentle at all. The first thing she said when she saw me was, "So you're that 1,000 yuan kidnapper?" I corrected her. "An extra." She nodded. "Got it. An extra with rather poor professional ethics." I was choked up, taking a long pause before saying, "When you rich people make friends, are you all this good at hitting where it hurts?" Yaan Shu threw a newspaper over with a smile. Guan Siwen pushed a stack of files onto the table. Xiao Ran bought paid internet trolls, and also contacted marketing accounts. He wants to turn both of you into a laughingstock, forcing the Ye family to step in and cut ties. I flipped through a few pages, my scalp tingling. When rich people fight, they really don't rely on the volume of their voices. They rely on their budget. Yaan Shu looked toward me. "Scared?" I said. "Yeah." Her expression shifted. I continued. "Scared they'll photograph me looking even shorter." Amused and exasperated, she let out a laugh. "Yuan Yi, can you please be a little serious?" I wiped away my smile, placing my phone on the table. That text message from yesterday, as well as the screenshots from the part-time job groups, I kept them all. Even though the account that posted the gig has been deleted, He Chang took screenshots beforehand. I also did deliveries near the studio. There's an auto repair shop nearby, and the security camera at their door points right at the back exit. Yaan Shu looked at me, slowly raising an eyebrow. "When did you check all this?" "On my way back last night." "Didn't you say you were scared?" "Even if I'm scared, I still have to check." I scratched my head. "I can't let you stand out in front all by yourself every single time, right? Otherwise, my performance quality as a boyfriend would be way too poor." Yaan Shu didn't speak. She just looked at me, her gaze softening bit by bit. Guan Siwen cleared her throat from the side. "You two, although I don't want to interrupt your flirting," Xiao Ran is still very much active. Yaan Shu withdrew her gaze. "Then let's make him a bit less active." Yaan Shu directly used the official Yi family account to post the complete surveillance footage, along with a police record and a lawyer's statement. There were only 3 main points. First, Yaan Shu was indeed lured to the studio that night. Second, Yuan Ya is not a kidnapper. He was an extra who wandered in by mistake, and there was absolutely no inappropriate behavior throughout. Third, Xiao Ran's assistant is linked to the vehicle that was tracking her, and the matter will be handled according to the law. Within half an hour of the statement being released, public opinion began to reverse. Guan Siwen scrolled through the comments, laughing uncontrollably. Someone said, "Although Yuan Ya is poor, he has a good sense of boundaries." I said, "My thanks to the netizens. It's the first time anyone has praised me by putting poor and sense of boundaries together." Yaan Shu sat on the sofa and suddenly asked, "Has your account been restored yet?" I paused. "Not yet." She picked up her phone. I grew defensive. "What are you doing, helping you handle the complaints?" "Don't." I quickly pressed down on her wrist. "I'll do it myself." She looked up at me. I said earnestly, "Yaan Shu, I know you can handle it, and I know you can handle it fast. But I can't just hide behind you for everything." She looked at me for 2 seconds. "Are you trying to draw a line between us?" "No." I didn't let go of her wrist. "I want to stand beside you, not hide behind your back." The room fell completely silent. Holding her laptop, Guan Siwen tactfully stood up. "I'll go to the kitchen to see if there's any water, and give you two some space to develop your plot while I'm at it." After she left, Yaan Shu leaned in a little closer. "Yuan Ya." "Yeah? What you just said sounded pretty decent." I smiled. "Then what did I sound like before?" She thought about it, like a poor cat with a very stubborn mouth and very long legs, who just wants to run away whenever something happens. I looked down at her. "And now?" She reached out, interlocking her fingers with mine. "Now, you look like you belong to my family." My heart skipped a beat, but my mouth stayed stubborn. "Miss Ye, is cat food expensive?" She smiled. "Don't worry, meals are included, with an extra egg." I couldn't help it and laughed along. That night, Xiao Ran was taken back by the Xiao family to be dealt with, and the Ye family stopped pressuring her for the time being. The rumors outside slowly died down, but what I cared about most wasn't whether my account had been restored. It was when Yaan Shu walked me downstairs, stood under the streetlight, and asked me, "Yuan Ya, are you still going to run?" I looked at her, finally dropping the sarcasm. "No more running." She smiled slightly. "Does it count this time?" I took her hand. "This time, I'm the one making the move." "It counts." She looked down at our joined hands, the corners of her mouth curling up bit by bit. "Yuan Ya, your repayment attitude is pretty good. I asked. Can the interest be reduced a little? She swung my hand. No way. Why? Because I'm in a good mood, and I want to raise the rate. The storm completely settled down half a month later. Xiaoran had been taken back by the Xiao family to be dealt with, and the Ye family finally left things quiet for a while. My delivery account was restored, my landlord wasn't kicking me out anymore, and a neighborhood auntie even stopped me downstairs, asking mysteriously if I was really dating the Yi family heiress. I said, Auntie, let's keep a low profile. She said, So, you are dating. I replied, Your logic is a bit too sweeping. She patted my shoulder. Young man, relying on a woman with such confidence is a skill in itself. I felt gloomy for 10 minutes after getting home, and then Yaan Shu texted me to ask if I had eaten. I immediately stopped feeling gloomy. A person can have pride, but not when it comes to dinner invitations from his girlfriend. Even though at the time, we hadn't officially confirmed our relationship yet. She asked me to meet her at the old studio. The place was already empty, and the weeds at the entrance were taller than last time. When I arrived, Yaan Shu was standing by the door holding an envelope. Seeing me, she waved it at me. Ransom. I walked over. How much? 1,000. She stuffed the envelope into my hand. Take it. I didn't take it. The price has gone up now. Yaan Shu raised an eyebrow. Up to how much? I looked at her and said seriously, I don't want money anymore. I want the person. The wind blew through the broken windows of the studio, making the old wooden door rattle loudly. Yaan Shu looked at me for a good while, then suddenly slapped the envelope against my chest. Yuan Ya, you've gotten quite bold now. I grabbed the envelope and also caught her hand. Learned it from you. She smiled. Don't blame it on me. I only told you not to run. I said, Then your teaching was pretty successful. She looked up at me. Really not running anymore? I nodded. No more running. The Ye family brings a lot of trouble. I know, I have a bad temper. I've witnessed it. And I hold grudges. I've especially witnessed that. She held back a laugh. And you still want it? I said, Yes. Yaan Shu's eyes slowly crinkled into crescents. Want what? I sighed. Yaan Shu, you know full well I'm thin-skinned. She took a step forward. When you said you'd sleep with me if I didn't pay you back then. I didn't see you being thin-skinned. I felt a headache coming on. That is a dark stain on my life. Can you please not replay it constantly? No, she said righteously. I hold grudges. Cornered by her with no other choice, I had to tighten my grip on her hand. I want you. Yaan Shu was finally satisfied. She pulled that 50 yuan bill out of the envelope. There was no suspense, no forcing herself to hold things together, and no faked indifference. No, she was just genuinely happy. She stuffed the 50 yuan into my pocket. Fine. Then starting from today, you'll pay it back in installments. I asked, How do I pay it back? She leaned in a little closer. We'll start with holding hands. If you behave well, we'll unlock the next installment. Looking into her beautiful, watery eyes, my heart started pounding wildly against my will. Then, I instinctively lowered my head and gave her a gentle kiss. It was very light, as if afraid of startling something, yet also as if finally daring to confirm something. Yaan Shu blinked. That's it? I said. Just testing the waters first. Amused and exasperated, she said, Yuan Ya, are you no good at this? I took a deep breath. Yaan Shu, as a law-abiding, right-minded adult, I suggest you don't provoke me in an abandoned studio. She smiled even more mischievously. And what if I do provoke you? I looked at her, my heart beating incredibly fast. In the end, I just reached out, pulled her into my arms, and held her tightly. Yaan Shu quieted down in my embrace. After a long time, she said in a small voice, Yuan Ya, I'm here. If you hadn't shown up that day, I might really have been scared. My arms tightened around her slightly. If I had known that day that you were a real high society princess, I might not have dared to show up. She looked up. And now? I said. Now I still don't quite dare. She frowned. I smiled and looked down at her. But I'll still come. Yaan Shu looked at me, her eyes lighting up bit by bit. Every single time? Every single time. She was satisfied. By the time we came out of the studio, the sky had already turned dark. She insisted on riding on my electric scooter. I said, Your Highness, the top speed of this thing is 25 kilometers per hour. And that's even with someone on the back. She put on the helmet and patted the back seat. Cut the chatter. If you keep doing this, it'll be easy for me to commit a traffic violation. What kind of violation? Speeding heartbeat. She couldn't stop laughing on the back seat. The night wind blew past our ears, and the streetlights receded one by one. Riding that beat-up electric scooter, carrying the hardest-to-please princess of the Beijing social circle, I slowly cruised through the city lights. The 50 yuan bill in my pocket pressed against my leg, like an absurd yet precious IOU. I had thought I only needed 1,000 yuan to survive. Only later did I realize that what I truly earned that day wasn't money. It was Yaan Shu, who would threaten me with a small leather whip, who would complain that she was only worth 1,000 yuan, who would hold my hand in front of everyone, and who would hold me tight from the backseat of a beat-up electric scooter. Yuan Ya. What are you laughing at? I said. Laughing because I hit the jackpot. Hit the jackpot? Yeah. How much did you hit? I thought about it. A lifetime's worth. Yaan Shu pressed her face against my back, her voice full of laughter. Then you'd better keep a close eye on it. Why? Because an opportunity to hit the jackpot like this only comes once in a lifetime. I gripped the handlebars tightly, unable to suppress the grin on my face. Yaan Shu. What's up? This time I'm not running. Thanks for watching.